Color by William Chambers, 1857, pointed out that a slave ought to regard his master as God himself. I say that what faults you are guilty of towards your master and mistresses are faults done against God himself, who hath set your master and mistresses over you in his own stead. These are the people who taught us Christianity. These are the people who taught at tent revivals. This was their doctrine. So in 2020, our racism, because people are like, well, Moreh Parker, you're bringing up the past. This was back then. You're bringing up stuff from the 1700s and the 1800s. But we're past all of that now. How many of you listen to these contributors on the news and we're way beyond that. Listen to this. In 2020, when was 2020, y'all? Last year. Our racism index, a measure consisting of 15 questions designed to get beyond personal biases and include perceptions of structural injustice compared to non-religious whites. White Christians registered higher median scores on the racism index. I'll just let you think about that for a moment. So some of the people who you're going to church with or you went to church with who were jumping and shouting and speaking in tongues and calling your brother and sister, when you take them outside of the whole framework of the building and all that, and you get down into the nitty-gritty of how they really feel, they score higher on the racism index. Because a lot of them, they don't mind talking to you, fellowship when you come to you. You can come to their house. I'm not saying all, I say a lot. So there are always exceptions. The reason why I bring up the abolitionists is because a lot of the abolitionists were white. And they wanted to help blacks become free. It's a whole history behind that sometimes doesn't get highlighted. But the mere fact that you have fellow so-called Christians who, when you ask questions about equality, do you think blacks are equal to whites? They're like, oh no. We're talking about racism index here and some of the questions that were asked. Do you think blacks should get equal pay as whites? But I don't think so. But I thought we were all one in Christ. That's what they taught us. We're neither Greek nor Jew, bond or free. We're all one. So this form of Christianity does not mirror what we see in the text, what the apostles taught, what they taught. So let's look at this. So in the South, y'all lucky y'all in the South. This is North, right? Where? I'm from Florida. Midwest.
It's North.
So in the South, I'm from Florida. And when I first came here, I saw the racism. Ironically, my wife was born and raised in Florida, and she really haven't seen it. I'm going to draw a quick analogy to, and some of you, you've never experienced this. Good or bad, you walk into someone's house and you begin to smell an odor. Yeah, man, again, I say good or bad, so I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. You either say, oh man, to yourself, say, oh man, this smells real good. Or you say, this is a terrible smell. But you realize that the longer you stay there, it seems like you just kind of go away. And to the people who live in the house, that's their normal. But you as an outsider, you going in, you're like, something doesn't fit my norm. Again, whether good or bad. So sometimes when you're from the outside and you come in, you see things a little bit different. So the South, it's rough. It's rough. So in the South, white evangelical Protestants have the highest median score of 78 on the racism index. Did y'all know that the Baptist church split over slavery? That's why you have Southern Baptists. Southern Baptists were the ones that said, we want to keep slaves. And if you're Pentecostal and you kind of know some of the stories about Azusa Street and all that, William Parham is credited as the founder of the Pentecostal church, while William Seymour was the one who was holding the meetings. William Seymour was not accepted to preach in some white congregations. As a matter of fact, one of the white church put him out. But hold on now, we're talking about Holy Ghost filled speaking in tongues Pentecostals. UPC has a history that they had to split their conference because, Sister Deborah, you know about that story?
Yeah, I had his William Seymour's book, and then I'm from Church of Our Lord Jesus Christ Apostolic Faith, Bishop. We know, no, not Vaughn. I can't think right now, but Lawson. They all came from that era. Yeah.
So a lot of churches that were started, a lot of black church organizations were started because they had to split from their white counterparts. But if we're all loving Christians, why are we having this dilemma? So let's dig a little bit further. The median score of white Catholics, 72%, and white mainline Protestants, 69%. And this is by Robert P. Jones. So there is a high level of racism within the framework of Christianity that everyone wants to ignore. But as we begin to dig deeper and look at ourselves, we can see that this is not a framework that the Most High had constructed for us to operate in. So it has kept our people in a system that is similar to what we were in when we were in Egypt. The funny thing is, our people worship other deities while they were in Egypt. When they came out, Egypt was so much in them that they said, let's make us a golden calf. Where do you think they got that from? The system that they just came out. And let's say that this is this golden calf who led us to freedom. Of course, Moshe was upset. A lot of people died behind us. Nothing. No, you won't.
He said you can go to Egypt.
Let me see if I can. All right. Okay. These smart devices, they're listening. All right. So our people, when we came out, and again, for those who just walking in, this is our Independence Day. When we came out, we made a golden calf. So that was a golden calf then. The Europeans gave us this golden calf. And as you can see over there, what's taking place. So the golden calf that was created said, this be the Elohim that brought us out. Europeans gave us that golden calf and said, this is the Jesus that saved you.
That's right.
Washed you in his precious blood. It was created in the image of our oppressors. Just as this golden calf was created in the image of the religious system that oppressed our people in Egypt, this image was created to represent the system that oppressed our people now. We're talking about the Exodus. Dr. Jones was talking about how we got this figure. And believe me, some of our people, if you try to tell them that that's not their Jesus,
Watch out.
committed the ultimate sin. And they have a big thick Bible that great-grandma gave them with the picture. They're going to say, this is my Jesus.
And Obama.
Him and Obama. So let's look at the conclusion here. I'm getting ready to wind down. So we understand that this is our Independence Day. We understand the oppressive system that was in place in Egypt. We saw Mashiach, who is a type of Moses to deliver Yah's people from spiritual religious bondage. But we have to now ask ourselves, what is our role? Because now we're in the awakening. What is our role? Where do we fit into all of this? Moreh Parker, everything you've discussed, where do I fit in? A lot of good information, but where do I fit in? Here's the story. Yah has once again heard our cry. So this is freedom cry. A lot of us in the Christian church, we were hungry for truth. We were crying out to the Most High, say, Yah, reveal yourself to me. I want to know you for myself. He heard your cry, and he once again extends to you an arm of revelation to reveal to you who he is. Now, he used Moses for the Egyptians, Mashiach during the time of the first century. Now the mantle of Moses is upon you. Let's get into it. So Moses, also known as Moshe Rabbeinu, as a great teacher, he was born during the time period when the Israelites were in bondage. Yah miraculously spared his life to carry out his divine plan. Here we are, Mishpachah, and listen to me very well. You are not here by accident. It's no coincidence that you survive to live in this present era. Yah miraculously spared your life through everything that you've experienced, everything that you've encountered to be in this present time. Let's look at some reasons why. You were born in the land of your captivity, just like Moses was born in Egypt. Moses was used by Yah to speak to his own people, and Yah has called you to speak to your own people.
Come on.
Moses was born and educated as an Egyptian and had a comfortable life growing up in Pharaoh's house. We were educated in this Western system. We were taught Western philosophy, Western dogma, and Western Christianity. And once Moses had an epiphany, he became aware of the issues impacting his people. We have seen the travesty that has impacted our people, and we have been made aware of who we are. Moses was one of the first woke Israelites. Can we just be real?
Yes.
He was raised Egyptian, thought he was Egyptian, just like we were raised American, thought we were American.
Come on. That makes sense.
But the Most High caused for him to be awakened to who he was, just like Yah has caused us to be awakened to who we are. Then we have to understand that Moses faced retaliation by his own people who he tried to defend. We deal with the same thing. When you try to tell your family about who Yah is, that first of all, his name is not Lord, his name is not God, that he has a personal name. We face all type of retaliation when we tell our family that Christmas is pagan and Easter is pagan, and we face all kind of retaliation when we tell them that Sunday is not the day of worship. This thing goes in cycles. Our history keeps going in cycles. Moses faced a lot of retaliation, and we're facing the same type of retaliation by our own people. Let's keep it moving here. Moses retreated to Midian where he lived in solitude. Some of us, after waking up, we just want to withdraw. How many feel like they were all by themselves when they woke up? That's right. We find ourselves in a state of solitude where we feel alone. We don't want to be bothered with nobody else. How many went through a state of anger when they woke up? Because you've been lied to all this time, and some of us still mad at the church. Moses was commissioned to act as an agent by Yahuwah. Moses did not feel equipped and wanted to opt out of the mission. You know that there is something deep down inside of you that when you come across your family and your friend, you want to say, do you know who you are? But sometimes we're so apprehensive because we feel like we don't know enough Hebrew. We don't know enough about the Torah. We don't know enough about our history. So we feel like we're not equipped. Some of you are taking classes online and learning Hebrew. Why? Because you want to be more equipped. Let me encourage you, Mishpachah. You cannot allow your deficiencies to keep you from your mission to tell God's people that Yah has heard your cry. Moses said, I'm not eloquent in speech. I don't know how to speak to this people. Yah said, don't even worry about it. I knew all of that before I called you and I appointed you. I know about your weakness. I know about your challenge. I know about your shortcomings. But you have a mission. You have a job to tell my people that I've heard their cry. The message of deliverance and freedom for an oppressed people. The people must know who the source of their deliverance. Listen, we've tried all of the other stuff. We've tried all the other stuff. We've had freedom fighters. We've had marches. We've had civil rights leaders. But until we cry out to Yah, we won't get the deliverance that we need. We won't get the answer that we need, because Yah says, I'm now come to deliver you because I've heard your cry.
Yes, yes.
I won't get into this because we're all stood here, but once we understand who we serve, that this is now personal. Moshe said, who am I going to tell them to send me? To tell them that the I am that I am sent you. Say, well, what is your name? And he gives them the name, which is Yod-Heh, Wav-Heh. This is the deity of Israel. This is our Elohim. He said, this is the Elohim of your fathers. This is the Elohim of our ancestors. This is not a brand new deity that has shown up on the scene. This is not like the Egyptian deities. I'm separate from them. So when we talk about our heritage, we're serving the Elohim of our ancestors. So when we think about the Tetragrammaton, it was replaced by Kurios, which just means Lord. Our Elohim, Lord is not his name. That's just a title. But we already know that, so we'll move on. And again, when we look in Hebrew, when he says, when Moses said, who sent me? He says, tell them Yahuwah. And he said, moreover, God. In Hebrew, as you know, it's from right to left. And said, I'm sorry. And said God moreover to Moses, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name. We were calling on Lord and God in the Christian church for so long, not even knowing that our Elohim had a name.
That's right.
But now that we have awakened, and I'm sorry, I'm not apologizing. I'm not ashamed. When I write my essays, when I write my assignments, I'm putting YHWH. Yod-Heh, Wav-Heh, or however you want to put it. I'm not putting Lord and God, because that's not his name. We have a personal Elohim. He is the Elohim of our fathers. And the reason why he said that is because he wants you to know that I care enough about you to honor the covenant that I made with your fathers. Honor the agreement. But when, of course, when we look in the Greek, same thing. Same Exodus chapter 3, verse 15. Look what they have here. It's not working on the map. They have Lord. Lord is not his name. So they've kept us in spiritual bondage. We've been blinded. And now we are calling our Elohim just master. God, Lord, serve. He's more than that. He is our deliverer. So the message of deliverance, of freedom for the oppressed people is one, freedom from false worship to true worship. It says, I want you to come and worship me. That's what it says. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go so that they may come and worship me. Yah wants you to worship him, not the other Elohims. Freedom to serve him and him alone. The word serve there, now listen to this, because this is Independence Day. Listen to this. The Hebrew word for serve is abad. We have the Hebrew scholar right here. Old Aramaic is slave or vassal. Serve, perform an act of worship. Oh, what? So as a part of serve, it's not just to render labor as a slave, but it also includes an act of worship.
Yes.
But when we look in the Arabic, which is a sister language to the Hebrew, it's a part of the Shemitic language group, serve means to obey.
Yes.
So what Yah is saying, let my people go so that they may come and serve me, instead of Pharaoh being the taskmaster. Yah said, I'm going to take over the role of being their master, and I'm going to be a better taskmaster than the one they had before. Now they're going to come and perform acts of worship to me.
Yes.
There we go with the feast days. It is an act of worship to our Elohim. Because in Egypt, they had their own feast days that venerated their Elohim. So Yah said, I want him to come and serve me. That's why Paul had the correlation, he says, that I am a slave to Mashiach, to the Besor. I have no rights. Oh, wow.
Come on.
When Yah becomes your master and you're serving him, just like our ancestors had to do everything that master said do, Yah wants you to apply that to him.
Yes.
I know this kind of sounds foreign to a lot of us, but slavery denotes property, who owns you. Yah said, I'm going to take you from that wicked owner you had, and I am going to be the loving owner that will care for you. I'm not going to put you in servitude. So if you want to go back under that old system where the taskmaster is going to abuse you and do a manner of atrocity to you, that's entirely up to you. But as your master, I'm going to provide for you, I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. So when we think about the call in this last hour, and I'm wrapping up here, in this last hour, John said, I heard in the vision a voice from the Shamayim saying, come out of her, my people, so that you will not partake of the sins and contract any of the plagues. So Yahweh is raising up a generation of Moses to cry out to say, let my people go. We are this generation.
Amen.
We are this people. We are the ones that will cry out and say, let my people go. We have to let the Most High people know that Yah has heard your voice.
Yes.
And I am now come to tell you that he wants you to serve him. You've served in Christian church. You've served on church boards. You've served on usher boards. Yes, I want you to come serve me. And how he wants to serve him, of course, is in spirit and in truth. The conclusion is obedience is the highest form of worship.
That's right.
Did y'all hear that, Mr. God?
Yes. Hallelujah.
Obedience is the highest form of worship. And I have all the texts up there, 1 John 5:3, where this is the love of Yah, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. our ancestors were under a terrible burden from the taskmasters of Egypt. And even within Christianity, we were under the burden of spiritual wickedness. But Yah has called us out so that we can be free. So what I want you to understand, Mishpachah, is that when we cry, Yah hears us. We're here because he heard our cries. He knew that we wanted to be free, that we wanted to know him. So as our ancestors cried, Kumbaya, and for a while I couldn't get it. But they were crying, so come by here.
Hallelujah.
Come by here.
Yes. Hallelujah.
Oh Yah, come by
Come
here.
by here. Hallelujah.
They were tired of working in the fields,
Yes.
picking cotton, going without food,
Yes.
being abused, and they cried.
Yes.
And as a result, we've received a form of emancipation.
He caused the north and the two to turn on each other.
And then we had another cry where we knew something was wrong with the spiritual construct of Christianity. And we say, yeah, I need you.
Yes.
And he heard us, and he delivered us.
Mm-hmm.
So he heard our cry for freedom. As we think about the natural exodus, we also thank the Most High for the spiritual exodus
Yes. Yes.
from a house that held us captive,
Yes.
the house of Christianity.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Expound on Charles Spurgeon, please.
So Charles Spurgeon, from what I've read, he was a gentleman in England, very famous preacher, and some consider him a theologian. He's cited as a theologian. He had some very good points on how to remain pure as a Christian, as what we call holiness. So he was against a lot of the traditions that were in Christianity, but he still espoused a lot of the teachings of Catholicism. So he's noted as a very good theologian. Charles Spurgeon, the theologian, he wrote commentaries, or he's cited as writing commentaries. But as far as one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of theologians, although they've done a lot of good work, they've always missed it as far as who the Most High people, who we are, and what's Yah's plan for us. So they try to spiritualize everything and put everything under the banner of spiritual Israel, or the new Israel, or you'll hear the term the church. That Yah is no longer dealing with the nation of Israel, he's now dealing with the church, the body of Mashiach, which is not correct. It's not correct. Because if that is the case, then either the prophets misprophesied or Yah told them a lie. Any other question? And let me just kind of go back.
I'm just saying how much the Ruach really has taught me.
I have a question.
You don't have to have every scripture in it, but you have it some kind of way. You have the Ruach taught me a lot.
Moreh, Vaughn,
Yes.
I have a quick question. Do you know anything about Bishop Mason, that he was an awakened Hebrew before?
I've seen the article. I've seen the article
that he knew about.
that he was, and I've also,
So I'm wondering what happened.
yeah. So so one of the things you'll hear from some of the urban apologists is that this Hebrew Israelite movement started in the 60s.
It didn't.
And then you'll hear some say, well, it got started in the 40s. And they'll cite, of course, Bishop Mason
Right.
and a few others that mention that we are the children of Israel. But what they fail to ignore is the fact that our ancestors have always said that.
Right.
Yes.
It's just that we have documented accounts of those who were saying it in the 40s and 60s. But where I'm from in Jamaica, the Maroons, they've always known that they're Hebrews. They've always known that they're Hebrews. And interesting, that movie, Joseph, I'm going to have to check it out because I heard some Jamaicans talking in there. But just to kind of go back, this was the intro, Freedom Cry. the historical Exodus and the mission of Moses. Egypt had their own feast days. A lot of people are not aware of this, so this is something good for some of you who may want to check this out. They had a New Year's Day. So New Year's Day is nothing new. It's not a creation of the Romans with Janus. Their New Year's Day is called Wep Renpet, and it was celebrated as their New Year. They had a Feast of Wagi, the Feast of Opet. So our ancestors were in Egypt celebrating these Egyptian feast days. So when we read where Moses said to Moses, "Tell Pharaoh to let my people go so that they may come and worship me." When you look at some of the translations, so that they may come and have a festival before me. And then, of course, Christians, they have their feast days, which is borrowed from other deities. The bottom line is feast days venerate deities. So just as in Egypt, feast days were venerating some of those deities. Sunday, the deity that it venerates is Sol Invictus. Christmas venerates Saturnalia. Easter venerates Astarte or Astarte. New Year's deity is Janus. Valentine's Day, Lupercalia. And of course, the biblical feast days venerate Yahuwah.
Yes, yes.
So when we think about Shabbat, Passover, unleavened bread, first fruit, Pentecost, trumpets, atonement, tabernacle, it all venerates him. So when we think about our people and the feast days that the celebrations that they should be really looking towards are those found in the Bible that venerates him. Because if not, then we are venerating other deities. And a lot of people, they just think it's a holiday. But when you understand it within the framework of festival or feast days, and in the ancient world, feast days venerated other deities. It was just not arbitrary. It was just not an arbitrary thing where, you're like, okay, happy, Merry Christmas. That was towards Saturnalia. It's just a renaming under the Christian construct. So wanted to share that, and of course, with the parent company, of capture that slide. So the parent company of Christianity is the Catholic Church, and anyone who does, research, they'll be able to tell you that the Protestant Church split from the Catholic Church, and there's a lot of edicts that people are not aware of. That church doctrine was determined by councils and edicts. So once you dive into church history a little bit more, you'll get into what is called synods and councils, church councils. So you hear about the Council of Nicaea, you hear about the Council of Chalcedon, Council of Laodicea, and these councils' doctrine was determined. Go ahead.
When the Catholics and the Protestants, because the Protestants was more spiritual, right? Even though they both had their different doctrines.
Not necessarily.
Did the Catholics kill off the Protestants?
Yes, they did, and I covered some of that in this slide.
Okay.
So the Protestants really had a problem with the
with
authority.
Christmas and stuff, right? Yeah. I thought they didn't celebrate them holidays.
They do.
No, but back then they didn't. They picked up the Catholic.
So later on, some broke off. So when you think about the Puritans, which is again a break off of the Protestants, the Puritans begin to reject Easter and Christmas.
Right.
But because they were in England, and the Anglican Church was a Protestant church who celebrated those days, according to them, they felt oppressed, and that's why they wanted to find new land so they can practice religious freedom. That's the story. But when we think about the root of why the Protestant church split, or the split took place, Martin Luther began to find some problems with reconciling Catholic authority based on what's in Scripture. So the Catholics, they had all kind of, for example, they had you had to purchase, what is it called? Indulgences. So Martin Luther had a problem with indulgences because he said this is not in the Bible.
Right.
How can you purchase your salvation?
Right.
How can you purchase forgiveness? So he began to challenge the Catholic Church, and especially according to some accounts, when he got a hold of some of the other manuscripts, because they were using the Latin Vulgate. And then when they got a hold of some of the other manuscripts that read different from the Latin Vulgate, he found out that Jerome, who translated the Latin Vulgate, put all kind of stuff in there that was not in the Greek manuscripts.
Right.
So allegedly when he found the Alexandrian manuscripts and he began to compare that, he said, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Y'all done put your own stuff in here, and he began to protest. And of course, eventually,
That's what led to all the slaughtering and stuff.
there you go.
Okay.
And
Christianity killed a whole bunch of folks.
yeah, so here I have that Constantine. What Constantine did was he weaponized Christianity. So to even get to where, and so some of y'all sitting here already went through this earlier, but for some who just coming back in, so when we understand what Christianity really is in comparison to first century believers, so in Jerusalem, you had different sects of messianic believers. When you read the book of Acts, you hear about the Nazarenes, the sect of the Nazarenes. You hear about a sect called the Way, and you hear about Christians. What some people are not aware of is that the Christians were in Antioch. They were a Gentile group. But the Hebrews did not go by the title Christian. They were called the sect of the Way, or the sect of the Nazarene. Paul admitted that he's affiliated with the sect of the Way. So according to the Way, which we were to say, I'm affiliated with that sect. But he was accused of being their ringleader. So when we read about Christian, we think that even the people in Jerusalem were called Christians. They were not. It was the people in Antioch that were called Christians. They were first called Christians in Antioch.
That's right.
They were not called Christians in Jerusalem. Because you have to understand who's writing the story here.
Okay.
So the Romans saw them as either the sect, the Rabbinic Council saw them as a offshoot of Judaism. And then when you dig deeper into history, you find out about the Ebionites. And you find out about the Essenes. These were also Messianic believers. Anyone heard about the Ebionites? The Ebionites, and I think I misspoke the other night on the round table, it was the Ebionites, not the Essenes, who had beef with Paul. The Ebionites thought Paul was a false apostle. They did not believe in his conversion. They felt like he was against Torah, and they argued against eating meat. So they had a few different things that they had going on.
Are they the ones that tried to imprison him, saying, you remember when he
It's not
saying he
clear.
didn't believe in the law, that
Yeah,
he was teaching the wrong
so
stuff.
they were one of the groups that accused him of not
Right.
teaching the law. But with the same breath, the Ebionites did not believe that Mashiach was born of a virgin. The Ebionites believed that he was the biological son of Joseph.
Right, that's where them-
So when we think about the first century believers in Mashiach, there were different groups. But the surviving group after the Bar Kokhba revolt and Hadrian completely disallowing Hebrews from entering Jerusalem, it's the group in Antioch that survived, the Gentile group that survived. So you have some of the early quote-unquote bishops, Irenaeus, and he began to write some very controversial things. They were very anti-Semitic. They hated Hebrews. So now the assembly, the rulership of the assembly, or the authority of the assembly, now has shifted from Jerusalem after the temple is destroyed, after the Bar Kokhba revolt. Now it has shifted over to Antioch. Antioch now becomes the quote-unquote the authority, which is determining church doctrine. But when things declined in Antioch, then it shifted to Rome. And we now begin to have all these councils to determine doctrine. So doctrine, contrary to popular belief, doctrine varied among different groups. It was not this one unified coalition. So when Constantine got it and unified it and weaponized it, he codified a religious institutional system that dominated that region. And if you did not adhere to what is called Nicene faith or Nicene Christianity or Constantine Christianity, you were persecuted. So even when we think about Athanasius and his belief system, they had the quote unquote Orthodox Church in the East and the Orthodox churches in the West, they did not always agree on all matters. So when you look at something that is called the Quartodeciman controversy, anyone ever heard of that?
No. Constantine was a...
You heard of that, Moreh, Ron?
You're right.
What was it called?
Quartodeciman controversy. When they instituted Easter over Pesach.
Wasn't Constantine a sun god worshiper?
Yes, he was. He worshipped Sol Invictus.